Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your Divorce Survival Guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back. And now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. How you doing? All right, how's school going? Yeah. So today's episode, I've been waiting to be able to have Dorcy Pruter on the podcast for a while now. We actually had a recording set up pre-pandemic that we had to reschedule, and then the pandemic hit, and then, well, you know how that goes. But Dorcy and I met just before the pandemic at a conference at the Southern California Mediators Association conference in Southern California, obviously. And we met the first night at the sort of cocktail mixer. And I think she was the first person I saw when I walked in the room, and we immediately hit it off and spent most of the night talking. So I adore Dorcy. And then then the next day I found out what she did, and I was like, oh shit, you are even cooler than I thought. So Dorcy is recognized as one of America's top reunification specialists. She's a conscious co-parenting coach who teaches divorcing parents struggling with attachment-based parental alienation how to reunite with their alienated children and resurface the bond that was obstructed. She teaches children how to be in relationship with both parents and delivers high-impact reunification strategies that inspire left-behind parents to take immediate action and restore the relationships with their children. In just a few years, Dorcy created one of the world's leading co-parenting companies, the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, to meet the needs of parents wherever they are in the divorce process. Dorcy also, it doesn't say in her bio, but she works with one of the top people in the parental alienation world, Dr. Childress, and they've sort of created entire programs and they teach mediators and therapists how to deal with parental alienation. So it's a really important topic and a really important conversation. I will say I learned a lot during this conversation because there were a couple of times you'll see when I come in, I'm like, yeah, so this is the way I've been doing it. And she's like, yeah, no. She does it nicer than that. But, this is some very important information to have and a person to have in your corner as you go through your co-parenting journey. And when it gets hard, I strongly and highly, highly recommend calling Dorcy and having a conversation with her because she is the shit. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Dorcy Pruter. Dorcy, I'm so happy that we're finally doing this. I'm so happy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here, Kate. Finally. A long-awaited podcast.
Dorcy and I, full disclosure, Dorcy and I met just before the pandemic.
Yes, just before the pandemic.
Just before the pandemic. And we hit it off immediately.
Yes.
In a restaurant bar.
Yeah.
I wasn't drinking because I don't drink, but we just hit it off right away. So this has been a long time coming.
Yeah. Well, clarify that it was a restaurant bar. We were to meet and greet for a mediation conference.
This is true. This wasn't like we didn't we didn't just pick each other up at a bar.
Exactly.
No, this was at a mediation conference and we were networking, but we also actually hit it off really well.
And to be clear, I was drinking. I did have a glass of wine.
You did. So, all right. So you are like always my go-to now, always the person that I recommend people talk to when there is any hint of alienation happening. So let's just sort of start off by, how would you define this? And
okay. Excellent. So alienation is really a urban term. So we'll use that language, and then I'll give you the proper language while we're talking today. So
Right.
alienation is known as a family dynamic that happens usually during and after a complex or high conflict divorce, where one parent or maybe another family member, a step parent or somebody, will interfere with the relationship of the children or child and the other parent. And they use different tactics, if you will, to influence the child to reject a normal range parent or a good enough parent, right? Somebody that maybe isn't a perfect parent, because there's no such thing, but they once had a normal relationship with the child. The divorce or separation happens. You don't have to be married, but the parents split, and somebody is influencing the children to reject the other parent, and it's usually the other parent, right? But sometimes they move on, and sometimes people experience a healthy or normal, seems like a normal co-parenting relationship for years, and then somebody new comes on the scene, and that new step parent starts to influence the children to reject the other parent. And I've seen that happen as well. And all of a sudden, things are great, and then a parent is completely cut off. So it's an emotional cutoff between a parent and a child. And then the child stops spending time with the parent. Now, those are the extreme situations. Kids can still go back and forth and experience alienation. They could be coming to the parent's house, the targeted or rejected parent's home, but still be acting out in behaviors of experiencing the emotional cutoff. So maybe I've seen things where kids come to, let's say, mom's house with a backpack full of food. They go squirrel away in their bedroom. They don't spend any time with the targeted parent, say dad in this situation, and they don't eat his food. They don't accept help with their homework. They don't communicate. If they communicate, it's short and rude and disrespectful. So, they could still be coming on parenting time, but not showing up the way that they used to. So sometimes there's this misnomer that it's only alienation if the child is refusing contact. And that's just simply not true. If we reframe with what's actually happening in the family, the child is being negatively influenced to reject a parent. So they're experiencing a dysfunction in their attachment system. So the attachment system is what connects us as humans. And when we're born, we're attached to both of our parents. Right. And then, we start to attach to other people, but it's not normal for children to reject parents. Even bad parents, children don't reject. Right. So they just want the bad behavior to stop.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's really complex, right? It's really deep, because I know even in my family, we have a situation where there's a really toxic parent, and the non-toxic parents do everything in their power to not talk badly, about the toxic parent, right? And to foster and support the relationship, with this toxic parent. And, sometimes it's like, and the DCFS is involved in, like, there are safety measures around this relationship that are appropriate. But at the same time, there's a lot of protection going on. And I think that can be really difficult, right? It can be really hard when there's toxicity. As a parent, I know too, right? That when there's toxicity, to not like name it or not sort of, but to still foster that relationship within proper safety parameters. Right.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So one of the things I think people do in that situation, if you've got a parent that is toxic or personality disordered or whatever, they're causing emotional, physical, sexual harm to the child, any of the above, then the other parent will try to overcompensate in parenting, and they'll also try to not alienate by not talking badly about the other parent. I want to be clear that bad mouthing is not alienation. You can bad mouth the other parent. That is not the whole kit and caboodle, right? Yeah. It's like, you should not badmouth the other parent. However, you should teach your child how to have authentic critical thinking skills. So if the other parent is behaving badly, you shouldn't ignore it. not talk about it. You should help your child solve problems by dialoguing with them in a way that's healthy and inspires critical thinking skills. So oftentimes we try to cover it up or mask it or build that relationship. And we're not really parenting properly because the child gets a mixed message.
Yes.
Well, wait a second, I'm being protected from this parent and this is bad, but you're not really talking about it. Is it bad? Did I do something wrong? What do I do? And I guess I don't know what to do. So our goal and role as parents is to teach the child to think critically.
Yeah.
So not rejection, but proper healthy boundaries by teaching the child to think for themselves in a healthy way. Now, that can be dangerous because a lot of alienating parents will say, it's not me, it's the child that's rejecting the other parent, and the other parent is normal range. So it's really important to assess the parenting of both parents to really understand what's happening, what's causing the symptomology in the child. So that leads me to, if we get out of focusing on the parents and we look at, we want to assess what's happening with the parents, but we look at the children to say, how is the child, let's just talk about how's the child showing up in relationship? What is the symptomology of the children? Are they rejecting a parent? If so, why? Is it one parent or is it the one that's being rejected, right? And if so, what's the behavior that's causing the rejection? Is the child demonstrating symptoms of personality disorder? Are they haughty and arrogant? Are they standing higher in the family hierarchy and judging the parent? An authentically abused child won't stand in a haughty and arrogant position and judge the other parent's parenting. That's actually not how abused children react. And so if a child has the symptoms of personality disorder, you can't really diagnose that. So the question is, who's causing that? Which parent has the fingerprinting of the pathology that they're imprinting on the child, right? So does that make sense?
Yes. So I just want to clarify, like if a child is exhibiting symptoms of personality disorders, I mean, it's hard to diagnose personality disorders in children, right?
Yes,
You can't, right? Because they're not developed enough yet.
Exactly. So I'm not a mental health provider, so I'm not going to diagnose, but I'm saying that it's common knowledge you can't diagnose personality disorders in children. So if they're showing the symptoms of personality disorders, then the question is, whose fingerprinting is that? It's the influence of one and sometimes both parents. So we deal at the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute with some of the most complex, really high conflict, lots of abuse types of cases where sometimes we have two parents that are abusive. And so what do we do in those situations? And you take the child protection role of Child Protective Services and you look at what would they do? Well, first we protect children. So we protect all abused children all of the time. And then it's about rehabilitation. And Child Protective Services, their goal is always to rehabilitate and reintegrate and reunite at some point when possible. So we really need to be following that methodology, even with child psychological abuse, which is what's happening when we talk about alienation. So alienation is one parent psychologically abusing the child and getting them to reject a normal range parent. And the child, we hear kids say, my other parent is telling me to have a relationship with that parent, but it's my choice. And really, it's more of the covert, implied type of alienation that's the most dangerous. So talk about that. What does that look like? What is this sort of the covert alienation look like? Because I think that most people would be like, I'm not alienating my kid. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So covert alienation is more implicit. So it's the look or the words like, oh, what'd you do at Dad's house this weekend? And they're like, oh, we swam in the pool and then we had cake at the neighbor's house. And it's like the body language of looking defeated and sad or saying things like, oh, you swam in the pool and with the neighbor's kids and oh my gosh, it's so dangerous to do that right now. Not saying your other parent is dangerous and putting you in harm's way, that swimming in the pool with the neighbor's kids is dangerous. Did you wear your life jacket? Well, no, I didn't wear you didn't wear your life jacket? Oh, So not saying, I can't believe you didn't wear your life jacket. It's the implied not wearing the life jacket at the other parent's house. That parent is somehow now putting the child in harm's way and they're dangerous. And the child picks up what you're putting down, what you're implying about the other parent. And it's things like that that start to build on itself, right, or on themselves, that create the narrative in the child's mind that, oh, I'm not supposed to have a good time at the other parent's house. I'm not safe at the other parent's house. And so they start saying things like, I'm afraid. It's not safe there. You know what you did. And the other parent's like, right? I don't know what I did. And the child can't necessarily articulate it because the other parent isn't articulating it. It's the implication, right? The implied something's bad. That's a simple version of that. Another common thing we see is like allergies. The child has an allergy to something and they may or may not actually have, and oftentimes don't have. And so it's controlling what happens in the other parent's time based on food restrictions. And what I see frequently is food restrictions that the other parent actually likes. So now they can't have peanut butter because the child has miraculously developed an allergy to peanuts. Or maybe the child has a mild allergy of something, but it gets exploited as the other parent doesn't care because they have this in their home. And even though the child's not eating it, just the simple jar of peanut butter is death-defying and child abuse. I mean, we see this kind of stuff all the time.
Oh my God. And what do you do? So if you're the parent who's sort of on the receiving end of this, behavior from the child that implies that there's some implicit covert tactics happening or whatever, like, what do you do as that parent? Like, what is your responsibility?
So that's a really, really great question. So what parents usually do is they start to defend themselves and then they start to argue with the other parent and then they start to argue with the children. And then they'll start to badmouth the other parent by saying, this is just your mom or this is just your dad. This isn't real, those kinds of things. That's what they normally start off doing. And then the child will anchor in because now they're in a convince and resist dance with the child and nobody wins in that tug of war. So I always say to parents, if you find yourself in this situation, and especially if it's starting to escalate, is to create the soft place for your children to land. Don't get in the battle. Get rid of the peanut butter, right? Hide it in your bedroom in a place in a locked cabinet if you must have your peanut butter, right? Like, don't get in the desire to be right, even if you are right, because that's a no-win battle. You're creating a conflict where there doesn't really need to be one because you're engaging. So disengage from that and take the high road. Create the soft place for your kids to land and help them think critically. So it comes back to the critical thinking skills. Oh, you're allergic to peanut butter now. That's interesting. How did that come to play? Did you get tested? Interesting. Oh, you had an allergic reaction. That's interesting. What was it? Right? And let the children answer the questions. You're not asking them in an accusatory way or tell me last night what happened with the peanut, you know what I mean?
It's genuine curiosity.
Genuine curiosity of helping the child think for themselves. Now, you may still have to get rid of the peanut butter, right? And the child may anchor into this false belief that they're allergic to peanut butter when they're not. Who cares? Worse things have happened, right?
Right. And I think that many moms or parents would be like, let's go to the doctor and get that test, right? Let's find out if you're allergic to peanut butter, right? Yes. And then you find out that you're not allergic to peanut butter. And then you show the proof to the other parent, like, see, you're like, yes, no.
Yes. They do that all the time.
Should they? Is that like, that's getting into the dance, but it's also getting like empirical evidence to your child, right? Be like, honey, you're not allergic to peanut butter. Like, this fear is not real.
Yeah.
So what's your job as a parent?
That's also a great question. I think it depends on the depth of the pathology in the family. So when you do something like that, you're also placing the child in the middle. Right. Look at the evidence. See, you're not. And so I think it really depends. What's the harm? If it's a peanut butter thing, it's a simple thing like that. What's the harm? Now it could escalate to something greater. right? So it could escalate to a touch on the shoulder is your dad is molesting you, right? Or your mom touching your leg, your mom is molesting you. I mean, we
Right.
deal with this. So
Yes.
dealing with that level of delusion, that pathology is delusional. So you could get the child tested. So the way I would go about that, if you want to do that as a responsible parent, would be, let's get a second opinion, because I want to make sure that if you're allergic to peanut butter, that I also know all of the rules and guidelines for a peanut allergy. And while we're doing it, let's go ahead and get the whole panel of allergy tests just to make sure that mom and dad are doing everything right to make sure that you're healthy. So I would always say, mom and dad, let's get the full thing done and test. And humans will manifest symptoms of things even when they're not allergic because somebody tells them that.
Right.
So they'll manifest an upset stomach or even a rash. People manifest stuff in their physical body all the time. So it's powerful, our mind. And so you could do something like that, but I would roll both parents into it, as in mom and dad should be, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was happening. I want to make sure that we're doing everything right here too. So you dispel the mom doesn't love you because she has peanut butter in her house and she's forcing you to eat peanuts, right? You can dispel those delusions. And if you want to go that far, just really check yourself and what is your intention? Is your intention to prove the other parent is wrong and doing something, or is the child still going back and forth and it's not that big of a deal and you can just get rid of peanut butter and you really need to test the kid?
Yes. I think that is the most critical distinction, right?
Yeah.
What is your intention? Is your intention to prove the other parent wrong, or is your intention to keep your child healthy and safe and out of harm's way, whether that's psychological, physical, or anything else?
Exactly.
Right?
And check yourself, because we can really convince ourselves that we're doing it for one reason. And really the underlying reason is I want to be right. And
exactly.
That's a sneaky little part of our lower self-consciousness, I call it. That's really, really powerful, especially when we're divorced and we're co-parenting with somebody that we secretly want to be wrong, even if we say, no, that's not the case. It's that little part of our consciousness is very tricky and crafty.
I will tell you, I come upon this all the time myself in my own head. Like this, even just this morning, I was thinking about it and I was like, wow, you really kind of want this to play out in this way because then you get to be right. That's really what's going on here. And that's probably not best for anyone, but man, you want to be right. Right. So I am like processed and this is what I do for a living and this shit still comes up for me. So if that's, people are listening, like, don't make yourself wrong for it. It's really normal to have those kinds of reactions.
It's so funny because I have been co-parenting bi-coastal for years, almost 2 decades now, scary. And I overcompensated for my ex-husband all the time because, we have 2 kids and my oldest daughter's the golden child. She pretty much runs the roost over there. And then my youngest child's the scapegoat. So she kind of gets poo-pooed aside, if you will. And I was always overcompensating, kind of what we'll circle back to the beginning of our conversation and not wanting to alienate, because I grew up in that environment and doing everything I can to not say anything and not do anything. And really it had the adverse impact on my daughter. And I remember having a conversation with Dr. Childress and he said, stop it. And I was like, stop what? And he's like, well, stop covering for the dad's inadequacies. Your daughter's old enough. She's not going to trust you because you're lying to her by not helping her. And I was like, it was I was like, oh my God, I could give myself a break, right? Because I was trying so hard to not point out the gaslighting and he's very cold and detached. It's just who he is. And not saying, yeah, I get it. That's why we're not married, because that's a terrible thing to say to your kids, because the relationship between spouses is different between the relationship and a parent, a child and a parent.
Right.
And so it's easy to say those things because you take you wherever you go, right? And my kid's dad, he takes who he is wherever he goes, and he is who he is. And so it really was an aha moment for me. And I do this for a living too. And we all have the opportunity to learn and grow. And for me, it was really shifting into the space to authentically listening, actively listening to my daughter and helping her build the relationship that she deserves to have with her dad, who isn't going to change. He's not going to change he is who he is.
Right.
So we don't bastardize him. We teach our children how to be in relationship with him. Right.
I love that, because that's something that I try to do. And I hope that I do. Right. That, because when we're pandemic podcasting, so much is home. He's in the other room, right. But I'm going to have to say this. When he talks to me about his dad's anger issues, right?
Yeah.
I can't say to him, like, your dad doesn't have anger issues, or like, he's fine, right? Like, I can't, because that would be, I think, discrediting his reality. Right. That would be undermining, and that's gaslighting, right? Yes. To be like, what are you talking about, right?
Yes.
But I also don't have to go far in the other extreme and say, like, yeah, that's, he's horrible and all this stuff. I'll talk honestly about it. Like, I know. And what I think, what I've learned is that your dad really responds to this kind of communication. And I encourage you to have an open dialogue with him about this, not while he's angry and triggered, but at another time, because I know that your dad can hear this, and I know that he can hear it at this time. And I also know that you need to start a conversation with your dad like this, right? Like, you always have to go in softly with him, right? And I think that that's a hard balance, right? Because I don't want to discredit his experience.
Yes.
But or invalidate his very real experience, but I also don't want to pile on.
Right.
Right. And drive a wedge.
So here's what I would do.
Yeah.
Is I would, when he is sharing with you and communicating, you actively listen. What I heard you say is, and repeat back what he said. Mm-hmm. And then I would ask him questions like, how do you think you could communicate with your dad? When do you think you could communicate with your dad? Mm-hmm. How is that making you feel? Oh, that's interesting. And then when he gives you an idea, say, that's one way you can do it. Is there anything else you can do? Right. So instead of giving him all the answers, help him come to his own conclusions and resolutions, so he can actually manage the relationship with his dad without running to you, right? On his own.
That's great.
Yeah, the truth is, his dad he's going to manifest his dad in his life in all kinds of different situations, right? We all do that. And so, helping him learn to manage complex situations and conflict, and people with personality disorders. I'm not saying his dad has a personality disorder, but I'm saying those people are everywhere. And so if we teach our children how to deal with complex conflict and personality disordered people, then you're actually helping him learn the skills now to critically think, so that when he moves about his life, he's going to be able to solve problems without having to run to you. Like, what do I do now, Mom? Now what do I do? Right. Or he applies what you tell him per se, but it may not be the right answer in another situation. Yes, right. Exactly. So helping him think in the moment. And I love the advice. We as parents, we want to give advice all the time, but it can be a communication block, right? Because we're now, that's one of those tricky things where you want to be right. And so
how it's so interesting. Yep.
How it gets masked, it gets masked in the, I'm trying to help my child. So critical thinking skills are one of the most powerful skills that we can teach our kids. And it's hard because we don't always use them, even in our own life.
And I love what you said. I love, like, this is so important and so helpful. Thank you, Dorcy.
Spank. Love, love, love.
But this is so important, right? That, like, what you said about, like, we manifest these relationships in other areas of our lives, right? And, like, this is important for us, right? Like,
yes,
I manifested my relationship with my husband, my ex-husband, based on my childhood wounding and my inability to actually think critically about how to have, and because nobody taught me how to think critically about other people's, behaviors and relationships. And I didn't learn this shit growing up. Right. And so we get to teach this to our kids
Right.
We're pretty much the first generation that's really getting to do that. Right.
Exactly.
And so I love that. I love that, like, actually teaching them to think, like, if someone had taught me to think critically about it, I could have applied it in all sorts of relationships and it would have been mine. Right.
Yes.
And so rather than giving my son a script to use with his dad, if I teach him, it's teaching him how to fish, right? If I teach him how to critically think about this one relationship, I teach him how to think critically about all relationships that he's going to come in contact with.
Exactly. Bingo. You got it.
So,
I just got goosies.
So
I love it when that drops down in. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. That's amazing. Amazing.
All parents, I mean, I've dealt with thousands of parents, we're all oftentimes are well-intended. And there's two things of which we manifest all of our actions from: fear and love. And it's tricky because it's a fine line. And oftentimes we think we're operating out of love, and it's really our fear. Yeah. And so no area of relationship do I see this more than parents and children.
Oh my God, right? Because, like, there's terror. Like, I divorced my ex partly because of his anger, right? And so when my son comes and talks to me about his dad's anger, like, I get so upset.
Yeah, it's triggering, of course.
It's so triggering, right? And it's not the worst, by the way. Like, my baby doesn't, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it can be scary, especially when you're little. Yeah. When you're a little person. You were talking. So let me ask you, the work that you do, the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, which I love.
Thank you.
You work together, right? How do you do that? How do you take people, especially in the extreme cases that you do in cases of alienation? How do you make that work?
So, in the most extreme cases where the courts are involved, we are working with clinical psychologists and mental health professionals that are diagnosing child psychological abuse. And this is one of the other most important reasons to use the proper vernacular, because if we go down the path of alienation, right, that's not a diagnosable thing. That's just urban language, right? And we must properly assess and diagnose, which is done with a mental health professional. So these extreme cases, we have to determine who's causing the problem. And then in the worst cases, there's a protective order that's put in place between the child and the pathogenic parent, the psychologically abusive parent. And that's been put in place because it's a child protection issue. And child psychological abuse is killing the child from the inside out. So there isn't physical evidence, right? A bruise, sexual abuse, that kind of stuff. It's an unseen abuse that destroys the child from the inside out. And so we must protect the child first. And in that child protection, it's not about elimination, it's about integration. So we run a 4-day workshop I created called High Road. And we recover 100% of the kids during the workshop. So we have haughty and arrogant and rejecting children that come in, sometimes cussing and terrible towards their targeted parent. And by the end of the workshop, the authenticity of the child, the authentic child, enters the workshop. And, the imprinting of the pathology is really lifted out of the child, and the child is resurfacing the bond they have with their parent, because the bond is never broken. And we explain to the child, it's not now mom is in and dad is out. It's temporarily, it's protection, because this is a child protection issue. We reframe it for the child. And while you may not disagree, you're a protected class for a reason. And we explain that to the kids. And then we have a mental health provider working with the other parent in teaching them the skills that they learn in the workshop, so that when we reintegrate the child with the parent, it's in a controlled environment. So it's monitored and supervised, and then hopefully to a shared parenting where the children are going back and forth. So the goal is always to get to some kind of shared parenting by educating and elevating the parents. Now, it's really hard when we have an extremely pathogenic, narcissistic, borderline parent, or sometimes antisocial, a psychopathic parent.
Yes, we have one with all of that in our family.
Yeah, so those parents are dangerous, and we first protect the child, but we don't leave that parent in the lurch, because the truth is the child loves both of their parents.
Right. This is this is the complexity, right?
It is. And they just want the abuse to stop. Yeah. So it may be in a controlled environment, but we as the protective, authentically protective parents, and I call protective parents the chosen parents, it is their job to do the work. They have to do the inner work to clean up their trauma and all of their triggers so that they can stand in an unconditionally loving container for their child and help the child learn the skills that they need, the resiliency skills and the critical thinking and all of those things so that they can be in relationship with the other parent. Sometimes it doesn't ever leave a controlled environment because that parent doesn't do the work. Sometimes those parents,
and they can't
abandon.
Well, those parents tend to not, like what you're talking, that extreme. They can't do the work, right? They are constitutionally incapable of change.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I believe everybody has the ability to learn and grow, and I've seen it. And so
with personality disorders, with antisocial, really? You've seen that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Remember, I deal with the worst cases.
I know. That's why I'm fascinated about this.
Yeah, they're hard. They don't do it easily. They don't do it willingly, but they will do it. And they don't necessarily become perfect parents because there's no such thing, but they can learn the skills because everybody can. And the power of the work that we do is we authentically empower the child. We teach the child how to be out of the middle. We lift them out of the middle and how to be in relationship, the skills they need to be in relationship with both parents, including a personality disorder parent, because they love that parent, but how to have a healthy boundary with that parent and how to be in relationship. Because again, they're going to meet those people along the road in their life, in work and school and wherever they are, they're everywhere. And I think, they say 13% of the population has a personality disorder. I personally think it's higher because those people usually don't go and get tested. So I actually think the percentage is higher, but it doesn't matter. If we take the label off and we look at the parent and understand that the personality disorder parent is a child of complex trauma who's now an adult. So now they're like a 3 to 5 year old child in a grown-up body acting like a 3 to 5 year old child. And so if we look at them with compassion and empathy and we believe in their ability to learn skills, then we teach them how to believe in themselves because there's these wonderful things in our brain called mirroring neurons. And if we don't believe that the pathogenic parent can learn skills, then ultimately what we're saying is the child that's acting pathogenic also can't learn the skills. And that's just simply not true. If the child can do the work, they're going to show up in relationship with the other parent differently. And it's hard to show up in relationship when somebody is shifting. You will shift. It happens to everyone, or you leave. The saddest cases are the parents that just refuse to do the work and they disappear. I hate that when that happens. Yeah. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of negative advocates and pathogenic parents think that that's not what we do, but that the goal is always to reintegrate parents when possible, but always with child protection in mind. We first protect the child, then we reintegrate with the targeted parent. We educate, reintegrate, and then we reintegrate with the other parent in a controlled environment. It's really, really important. Now, we just did a case where the judge removed the protective order. And so the kids are going back and forth. They were going back and forth before, but it's being reported by the parent, that the targeted parent, that the kids are remaining 4s and 5s and above on the parent-child relationship rating scale. So we're always monitoring the kids. So we're using this as an ABAB single case design, and it looks like it's going to be an ABA, which is A, they were rejecting and hateful towards the parent. B, they participated in the high road and learned the skills. The next week, they went back to the pathogenic parent, and now they're back with the parent who participated in the workshop, and they've been there a few days, and the kids are doing well. So now we have an ABA, a single case design, where we solve the problem. The kids are going back and forth, and while the pathogenic parent, if you will, hasn't really changed, something's changed, which is the children. They've learned how to go back and forth and keep their relationship healthy with both parents. They're learning to be in relationship with both parents. it's pretty exciting. It's new, right? It's fairly new, and it's exciting to watch it unfold. And we had both
That's
parents working with the coach prior to the workshop, and they were self-reporting their relationship ratings. So it's evidence-based, right? It's exciting.
Yeah, right. Do both parents have to be on board to participate in this kind of work? Like because usually, right, there's one targeted parent, there's one who's just, acting out. So like, how do you get involved? How do people?
Questions. So it depends on the level.
Yeah.
So if it's just starting out and the kids are still going back and forth, but the pathology is you're starting to see the symptomology in the kids, you can generally get those parents to participate in some kind of coaching. The extreme cases, they usually aren't both on board because the entrenched parent really believes that they're authentically protecting their children from this supposedly abusive, terrible, horrible parent. And that parent is suffering from transgenerational trauma. So that the parent who thinks that they're protecting their children from a normal range parent who they believe is abusive, they're really just reenacting their own childhood trauma. The other parent is the parent that was abusive in their childhood, and they are now the protective parent that they never had in their childhood, that parent that never authentically protected them from the abusive parent. So they're now stepping into that role. And sometimes they get mental health providers to step into the role, and then they say, I'm just following the direction of the mental health. It's not me, it's the therapist. I do whatever the therapist says. So they just throw all of their parenting, but it's just simply not true. We know that they're influencing that situation. So those parents don't generally participate voluntarily. Now, sometimes they do. So sometimes there's enough pressure from the court that if they don't get on board, there is going to be a protective separation, and it's going to be from them. So that gives them enough incentive to get on board and do the work. It's important. And unfortunately, the legal system doesn't respond to these cases properly. They don't understand the family dynamic. There's this whole shitstorm about parental alienation. Now there's all these false allegations of parental alienation. So it's the reverse silver bullet, if you will. So a lot of women have used domestic violence as a silver bullet to get a restraining order. A lot of men have used the silver bullet of alienation to get courts to make decisions. And I always say to everybody, get the facts. Look at the facts. Look at the data. What does it say? Who's doing what? Is it one or both parents? And if it's both parents, it's education. If it's one parent, still education. We need to educate the parents on how their behavior is impacting their children. And if it's child protection, we protect all children all of the time, period. We have to reframe it. It's not about custody. It's about protection and authentic protection.
And it's so... and I think the court system is so, especially like children's dependency court and all of that, they're so overloaded, right? That like what you do, I think, is so much more nuanced and so much more, probably more expensive and probably more time consuming than, and by the way, like you and Dr. Childress are basically like, you're kind of
right. Well, we're training people, so we are having we actually had a ABPA training, so attachment-based parental alienation training for mental health providers that we were going to do, but we got quarantined, so it was postponed. And so we're right now working with people one-on-one as cases come up, and we're training mental health providers and things. Dr. Childress is really assessment and diagnosis and treatment plan. I'm intervention, High Road is an augmented intervention, or our conscious ways for families, or some of the other coaching programs we have. We have healing from emotional trauma and things like that, where we can augment, we can teach, skills to parents before it escalates. I'd love to put the High Road to bed and that we never have to use the workshop anymore, and that we could actually be teaching these families, because, I'm a mediator as well. So I love it when we can catch it early, recover the family, teach them the skills early, and they never escalate and never need a workshop. I would rather not have to do the workshop. The workshop was created as a stopgap, as a way to recover these families that have been in the system. The family court system is expensive. We're not inexpensive, but it's a lot cheaper to recover your family outside of the adversarial court system
than to like go through a decade or more of like I mean, it's crazy. It goes on forever and ever and ever. And I think you're right. It's so interesting to me because I do think that from my experience personally and professionally in the, not just in family court, but in dependency court, is that, they're about reunification, but they don't necessarily give you the skills or the tools to be able to do that. They're just like, figure it out. Go sit for like an hour and with a mediator, or
go to reunification, or conjoint therapy is a big thing they say here in California. And it's like, that is absolutely useless. Right. First of all, it's not a real form of therapy. Neither one. Conjoint therapy and reunification therapy, it's not real. There's no such thing. There's no operational definition of either one of those therapies. So these families are going and they're
Googling and they're like, I don't know what this means.
There's all these therapists that have this on their website. They're meeting with one member of the family at a time. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, how do you do reunification when you're meeting with one person at a time? Maybe you meet with both people and the child says, I don't like to go to dad's house because I actually have heard this. I don't want to spend time with my dad because I don't like the way he sits. And you hear the dad readjust, and then you hear the therapist say, well, how about the way dad's sitting now? I'm not kidding. I've heard audio recordings of this. Or I don't like to go to my mom's house because she makes me eat salad and broccoli. And it's like, what? And the therapist saying, well, mom, do you think you could not serve her salad and broccoli at your house? I'm like, are you kidding me? This is the therapy that these families are getting. And they're focusing on a delusion. Right. They're focusing on issues that aren't real issues. They're focusing on not solving the underlying issue, what's causing the problem. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a knife wound and saying, okay, well, let's put this Band-Aid here and hopefully stop the bleeding for a little while. Oh, crap, you ripped the Band-Aid off. Well, here, let's get another one. How about a little bit of a stronger, but it's just stupid. And
never mind the fact that your organs are severed.
And whenever there's a breach in a relationship between a parent and a child, we need to repair that immediately. That should never fester and go on for any length of time, because the long-term consequences of a breach in a relationship that's not repaired between a parent and a child, it impacts the child for the rest of their life. It impacts every relationship they have, and with friends and boyfriends and girlfriends and husbands and wives and their children. It's transgenerational. We must stop it immediately. And we don't repair relationships here and there and with one person. We repair relationships quickly and in a container where in relationship. This is always so mind-boggling to me when people say, well, I can't spend time with you because, I'm mad at you. So I'm going to repair this all by myself. And when I'm ready, then I'll talk to you. It's like, what? That is conflict avoidant. It's not resolving anything. It's avoiding the issue. And a lot of times kids do this because they're avoiding the issue that's not the real issue. It's delusional. It's delusional. I mean, I've worked with families where a kid said, you're going to make me sit on the couch next to my mom because she stabbed me 37 times. And I'm like, wow, do you have a scar for that? Of course, she didn't stab him at all. It's delusional, right? Or I had 3 adult children I reunited with their mom, and they were accusing their mom of murdering their horse, even though the horse was still in the pasture. It's like crazy stuff. Like we see, when I say extreme, we see extreme delusional things where they believe that this parent has done something that they just simply haven't done. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my God. Wow. All right, Dorcy, we could literally talk about this all day because I feel like we might have to do a part 2 because I have so many more. You're such a, what I love about you, right, is that, I think we're so similar minded in that, like, we just try and take the black and white off of everything, right? Because all of these things are so much more complex than I think most people understand or give them credit for, right? And at the same time, when you get underneath the complexity, it's actually quite simple, right? There's simplicity underneath the complexity, but we're dealing with the simplicity above the complexity, which doesn't help, right? And so I'm so grateful for the work that you do. I'm so grateful that we got to have this conversation and tell people where they can find you, because I know that they're all going to want to find you.
So you can go to our website, which is consciouscoparentinginstitute.com. We also have a phone number. You can call us at our 800 number. It's 888-379-7279, or you can email clientcare@coparentinginstitute.com. So you can get a hold of us in any of those fashions. And for your audience, we'll give them a wonderful little program called Tame the Pain 101, which is a webinar and worksheet to really help people resolve their complex or micro traumas, if you will, from what they're experiencing right now, whether they're actually divorcing or thinking about divorcing. Because when we have a betrayal or a breakup or even a divorce, it brings all of our trauma together in this one incident. It just compounds it. So it's a really fun, simple exercise that takes this complex situation, helps you dive underneath the surface, and then resolve it pretty quickly and simply. So taking what you just said and making it simple and easy for them.
We'll put it in the show notes for sure. Yes. Oh my God, Dorcy, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
I know this episode is going to help so many people.
Thank you. Really. Thank you for having me, Kate. It was so much fun. I appreciate it.
Yay. I adore you. Thank you.
I adore you too.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.